In a time when Israel had drifted far from God, Elijah rose as a bold prophet, calling the nation back to the one true Lord. Elijah heard God's clear command, preparing his heart with courage to confront a king who had led the people deeply into idolatry. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel ruled over Israel. Idols filled the hearts of the people, and the Lord's ways were forgotten. Standing before King Ahab, Elijah declared with authority that no rain or dew would fall until God himself spoke again. As the drought began to spread, Elijah walked in full obedience, trusting God to guide every step he took in the dry land. God led Elijah to the quiet brook of Cherith, where refreshing water still flowed, even as the rest of the land dried up. Each morning and evening, ravens arrived with bread and meat, proving God's faithfulness to provide for Elijah in miraculous ways. Elijah drank, and strength returned to him. Even in a season of drought, God's hand was upon his servant. When the brook finally dried, God sent Elijah on a long journey to Zarephath, where his next provision would be waiting. He lifted his eyes to the horizon, knowing that God's plan was greater than the present struggle. Faith carried him forward. Welcome to Part 2. The Widow of Zarephath. Elijah traveled to Zarephath, where a widow lived with her son. She had a handful of flour and a little oil. The widow greeted Elijah with fear. "I have nothing left," she said. Yet God had sent his prophet. Elijah replied, "Do not fear. Go and make a small cake for me first, then for yourself." Faith in the Lord turned scarcity into provision. Even the smallest act of trust brought life. She measured the flour, poured the oil, and prepared the bread. Every movement she was trusting God's promise. The jar of oil and the flour did not run out. She witnessed God's power in her home, and her faith grew stronger. A quiet smile crossed her face. Even in hardship, God had not forgotten his children. Suddenly, her son became ill. Fear gripped her heart. She ran to Elijah, knowing God's prophet could intercede. Elijah cried to the Lord, "O Lord, my God, let this boy live again." His voice trembled. The boy opened his eyes, alive. Joy filled the room. "Now I know you are a man of God, his word is true." Welcome to Part 3, Mount Carmel Showdown. Elijah journeyed to Mount Carmel. The people whispered, curious about the prophet who spoke. The mountain rose high, dry, and majestic. Clouds gathered far off, hinting at God's coming power. 450 prophets of Baal gathered, shouting, dancing, and calling to their God. Yet there was no answer, no fire. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal, then follow him. The prophets built their altar, cutting wood and preparing their offering, hoping their God would respond. All morning they cried. But the heavens remained silent. Baal could not answer, for he was not God. Elijah watched. No fire came, no smoke rose. The people grew quiet, sensing the Lord's power. Elijah rebuilt an altar of stones, dug a trench around it, and laid wood and sacrifice carefully. He drenched the altar with water, soaking wood and stone. Doubt could not touch Elijah. O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel. Suddenly, fire fell from heaven, burning the offering, the wood, and the stones. The people gasped. The flames roared and consumed every part of the altar. Even the water in the trench was burned away. The crowd fell on their faces, crying out, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Fear filled the land. The prophets of Baal scattered, defeated and silent. Their voices were gone. Only the Lord remained true. Elijah stood alone, calm and faithful, a servant of God who had proven his power. Then Elijah turned his face to the Lord and prayed for rain. "O Lord, send the water upon the land again, to nourish your creation." In the distance, a small cloud appeared, rising slowly from the sea. He knew it was God's blessing. Soon, rain fell in gentle drops at first, then poured over the land. Rivers filled, crops revived, and people rejoiced. The mountains and valleys turned green again. Animals drank from streams, and the people thanked the Lord for his mercy. Elijah lifted his eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. The Lord had shown his power, his provision, and his faithfulness. I hope your faith was stirred by watching this video. Like and subscribe for more.